Good morning all, Michael Frey here. Just a quick reminder that the annual fun run is being planned for the 15th of June. So make sure you get your sponsorship forms filled in ready and get yourself signed up. This year the money will be raised for the local donkey trust and Mr. Carmyle will be in charge of donations, so talk to him if you want to help in any way or volunteer. I will be organising a kind of training group every Saturday from now on, so there'll be a chance to blow away the cobwebs before the big day. I'm sure afterwards we can all reward ourselves with a nice drink over the Lady of the Lake. Ciao!
Let's start at the top and work our way down. If there's a right way to do this, then I think that's it. The top of a hill. Not especially tall, but the tallest place around for sure. And on the top of the hill, some stones. Singing stones, sighing stones, flying stones, falling stones, courting stones, gallstones, gasping stones, depends on who you ask. 6 slabs of cold hard grey, arranged with no particular grace, but constant and sturdy in their slapdash state. Atop the dew-tipped grass, 3 brown bottles catch the early morning sunlight. There is sunrise in the glass and last night's starshine in the dregs of drink still tipsy on itself. Let's talk about the view from up here, not up far but far enough here. You'll see a forest with a town-shaped hole cut out, and in that hole a town. On the side of the hill, one path goes both up and down, well trodden, worn away, carved by excavating feet, a guideline still in place on the face of Irgledon Hill. Let's follow the dawn down the grassy mound into our little town. A town that's built on telling stories. Lyric ballads, spun yarns, anecdotes and fables, over coffee conversations, tall tales, white lies, epic prose, schoolyard notes and curl your toes ghost mythos. The main export would be folk tales if anyone or anything ever left or entered. Irgledon is insular and has been for longer than anybody living can remember. So the town keeps itself to itself, but for all the people in it, that couldn't be less true. Whether you like it or not, everybody's business is everybody else's business too. I suppose we'd better talk about the people. Buckle up. We'll start at George Farm, home to Rupert George the 17th or 16th or sometimes 20th, depending on what day he's telling you. He's a farmer, unsurprisingly, but hardly runs a profitable business. His entire flock consists of a single solitary sheep. His cherished Eunice carries the weight of his family's agricultural legacy on her little woolly shoulders, and I think she feels the pressure from her overbearing shepherd as she's not produced a drop of milk for as long as I can remember. And with just one sheep to shear, you'd be waiting years and years for enough wool to knit a sweater. Sometimes, if you're up early enough, you can hear Mr. Rupert George the maybe 16th giving encouraging speeches to his performance anxiety-riddled sheep. He pours out his heart and weeps for letting down his father and all fathers preceding, but she can only bleat and hope he knows she's saying sorry. Following the low road further into Irgledon, custard sunlight coats the rooftops, drips across the streets and leaves behind the sticky sheen of morning. The Wells' kitchen window swings out on its hinges as Mr. and Mrs. composer and lyricist practice the latest draft of their eternal work in progress, their would-be magnum opus, an operatic masterpiece that as it stands has many missing pieces. She slams her hands on the piano in a wave of desperation, tears a page from the libretto and throws it in the fireplace, cries out for an ending with more weight, so he prepares another pot of coffee, leaves it to percolate, and assures her that they'll get the whole thing spot on any one of these days. A few doors down, Miss Catherine Clipp is scrambling a pan of eggs and waiting for the toaster, which she knows is going to pop the second she stops expecting it. She plates up breakfast every day and takes it to her neighbour, friend and fiancée, the sweet Miss Polly Pritchard, who'll take the plate and exchange it for 2 boiled eggs and soldiers. They've been engaged for 7 years but refuse to live together until after the wedding, a wedding which they both agree is pointless unless perfect. So every day they, over breakfast, pore over the details, and every time they think they've scratched whatever marital itch they've been chasing, some other tiny thing appears that needs fixing or replacing. Jonathan the otter bought a boat from Polly's father, but never has he bothered taking it somewhere near a body of water. The sea became his dream even though he's never seen it. A captain, landlocked, stands docked outside his property, but keeps his vessel ship-shape, polishing the hull every other morning. He entertains the lie that one day he'll set sail. He keeps a bottle of champagne tucked away inside his fridge, waiting to break it on the bow to mark his maiden voyage. Currently, he sits and stares out his front window, sips his morning tea, 2 sugars and a splash of semi-skimmed, and waves at the approaching Stanley Grand, the milk and honey man, who every morning waves his bees goodbye, makes his rounds, leaves a bottle and a jar on every single doorstep. He saves his very best for his final destination, gives a little extra honey and a little piece of paper saying, "Have a good day, smiley face," to Abigail Maple, but thinks of all the things he wishes he could say, like, "Would you like to meet my bees? Then you could maybe stay for tea and one day even marry me." But he just drops off the jar and bottle only on her doorstep, in between the stacks of books, doesn't risk turning back to look in fear of making eye contact and not knowing what to do. He goes back home and tells his bees she'll never ever notice me, but they just buzz in frustration. They can surely smell the pheromones because I think they know she's sat alone, wishing Stanley would have said hello. Abigail Maple, the accidental librarian, tried to have a clear out. Outside her house she made a stack of books that she no longer wanted, underneath a note that read, "Please take one if you want it." Everyone in town thought this was a great idea, so sorted through their bookshelves and brought all the old ones here. Now her humble house is fortified with piles of paperbacks, non-fiction, classics, thrillers, plays and poetry, children's books and cookbooks, and loads on self-improvement. Despite being reluctant at the outset, Abigail has come to terms with her role in the community and busies herself with rearranging books in whatever way happens to take her fancy, by genre, colour, date of publication, but never alphabetically. She assumed at the beginning the stacks would shrink eventually, but despite the lack of rules in place, nobody wants to pay a late fee, so everyone that takes a book has brought it back within 2 weeks. In a house on the limits, on the outskirts of the village, almost in the forest, a house that creaks with every falling leaf, lives the widow Truly Grindle. She happens to be a practising Wiccan, an oft misunderstood religion, particularly by Irgledon's children, who send shivers down each other's spines with lies about the witch within the woods. This morning Truly brews a pot of tea and does a reading, draws the 3 of Swords reversed and smiles towards her husband. Always caught off guard, he looks up from his book, his face hardly given enough warning to start to form a smile, his eyes, just quicker than the rest of him, flicked up towards his wife behind the camera, the glint of affinity in his iris, a love whose shimmer never dwindled over years of repetition, an understanding that the same thing never feels the same if you're doing the same thing with someone who makes it feel exciting. Truly straightens up his frame and wipes away a layer of dust, tidies up her things but leaves the second teacup on the table. She ties her laces, grabs her iPod, starts her walking playlist, shuts the door behind her, braces for another day. Annie Renly, landlord of the Lady of the Lake, no, there's no lake in Irgledon, don't ask about the name, whistles some old song whose lyrics he's forgotten as he polishes the glasses and checks up on the stock. Annie's a man who's read everything you could ask about. the only one in Irgledon who kept his bookshelf in his house instead of outside Abigail's. He'll talk to you for hours about anything at all, always calls last orders at least 12 times an evening, 'cause he always gets caught up in whatever conversation he's in. He's got an earnest interest in the world and every question's genuine, and he knows that anyone who thinks they need a drink more likely just needs someone who will listen. Putting back the final glass filled with his reflection, he feels his top lip wriggle at the tickle of inspiration. He pulls the leather notebook out of his back pocket, snatches the pencil from behind his ear and scratches out whatever struck him. You'll see him do this from time to time, but not even I know what he's writing. There's plenty other oddities, neighbours, residents, but let's leave our open-top people tour before the morning fully goes and another hour tolls past. Actually, the mention of the bell reminds me. I'll just close off with the Reverend and his recently departed cat. Right now, the vicar, Jerry Whispers, sitting in his office, dips his brush in paint and starts another watercolour picture of his British short-hair Gideon. It's been over a year since his pet's passing, but the impact that cat had on Jerry's life is everlasting. According to a few, though, his companion hasn't truly passed to whatever other side there may be. When the vicar takes his nightly walk around the churchyard, if you squint just hard enough at the right moment, you'll swear you saw a sleek black feline slink along the wall. Okay, I said that would be the last of Irgledon's individuals I'd talk about, and I absolutely guarantee there aren't any more, for now. I do, however, feel I need to teach you about something we've all got in common, a piece of our history we've never quite forgotten. I hope you remember when I mentioned how much we all love stories. Well, I really truly meant it. For example, everyone has, and they will tell you, their own version of the origin of the stones up on the hill. Well, actually, it's maybe less a love and more of a tradition that's evolved from people sat around a fire telling tales of wars or stones. Nowadays, we take a slightly more modern approach. For an hour every week, 3 p.m. on Sundays, everyone goes inside their homes. The quiet town gets slightly quieter as people plug in their microphones and record whatever story they've got. That's what I'm doing right now, which you'll know unless this so happens to be your first episode. If it is, then welcome. Thanks for listening. I do this every week, so please come back if you've enjoyed it. It's always a little different. Thought I'd give you an idea of where I live this time. And if you're wondering, yes, it almost always...
Mr. and Mrs. Wells here. We're offering music lessons, and listeners of this podcast can get their first lesson free. Lessons are available for a wide range of instruments, including but not limited to the theremin, the piano, the didgeridoo, the kazoo, and the trumpet.
Hello? Is anyone there? I don't know where I am.